Welcome on back into the SCO Show right here on Mile High Sports. Aniello, Piro, Chase, Howell. Hope everybody is doing well out there, getting ready for a big game, a rivalry game between Colorado and Nebraska. And we're going to dive into that here in this segment. But we've got to reintroduce the man himself to the SCO Show. He is Adam Munsterteiger. All of you Buff fans out there know him. He's the publisher of BuffStampede.com. He's been covering the program long before Coach Prime, but he's also locked in and ready to give you all of the necessary information as it pertains to the Coach Prime era. Adam, you were a part of the show last year when we were doing the radio thing. Now we're moving it over to YouTube, which seems to be the it thing these days, but appreciate you hopping on with us and talking some Buffs.
Yeah, definitely. Congrats on season 2 of the SCO Show. For a second there, I didn't know if you guys were bringing it back, and that would have made me sad. So I was very excited when I saw you guys dropped your first episode of season 2 last week. And I always enjoy. I tend to be doing my yard work while listening to you guys a lot of the time. So I associate the SCO Show with mowing the lawn, I guess now.
Hey, whatever floats your boat. I'm the same way when I listen to my sports betting podcast. It's like when I'm driving or when I'm doing stuff around the house. So that's what we aim to be here on the show, is just kind of your weekly dose of Buffs content, get you ready for what's coming up. And look, I know I was talking about this with Chase a little bit. I know a lot of people love to dive into the theatrics around the program, and I love to eat it up as well. I'm no different than anyone else, but we like to dive into the X's and O's and talk about why the wins matter, why they lost, and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I think it's just incredible to have you on the show with your knowledge. And let's just dive right into it, my friend. Again, Adam Munsterteiger, check out his site, BuffStampede.com. Little sweaty against North Dakota State, at least in the first half. I loved the adjustments that the CU defense in particular made in the second half. Colorado escapes with a 31-26 victory. They start out 1-0. Let's start there. What was your overall interpretation of the game? And did the Buffs live up to the hype or the expectations that we've been hearing about throughout the offseason?
Well, I went into that game expecting Colorado to pull away, and they almost did. When they went up 11, they needed a defensive stand to kind of, I think, really make you feel good leaving Folsom Field with that second half performance. But it was a closer margin than I expected. But North Dakota State was also a better football team than I expected. We kept hearing about their history and the fact that they're ranked second in the FCS preseason poll this year, and they've got this savvy quarterback. But it's still, it is a head coach that does have history there, but a first-year head coach. And they had some key injuries in their preseason. The fact that they showed up to Folsom Field and had a great game plan, really utilizing the middle of the field against Colorado's defense, which we saw be an issue at times last year. So, I think I mentioned this after the game on Thursday. If Colorado's defense forces North Dakota State to punt the first 3 possessions of the game and then gives up 4 scores, versus the opposite of what did happen, where they gave up those drives early, but then corrected it, like you said, Aniello. And the fact that they were able to have that third quarter defensively made you feel pretty good, I think, about Rob Livingston in his first ever game as a defensive play caller. And like anybody that's in a new gig, I'm sure there's going to be growing pains with him, but to be able to see those adjustments at halftime, I think was the most encouraging thing. But you also try not to overanalyze it, right? This is one football game. I think North Dakota State looks really good, but we're going to see how they play out the rest of the season as well. So it's always easy to overreact because we finally have something tangible to talk about, yet it is still just one football game.
I think the story of the game on the CU side had to have been Travis Hunter. Just an unbelievable performance, and it's hard to have the right expectations for him because I think he blew my expectations out of the water in that first game. I'm curious, Adam, if you were to describe Travis Hunter to somebody that doesn't know anything about football, doesn't know anything about CU, how would you describe Travis Hunter?
I think fluidity is the word that comes to mind first. Even when Travis Hunter hits the turf, it's like artwork. It is unbelievable just how he has body control, and especially that touchdown that he had late in a season opener. Guys just don't have body control like that, and it's unbelievable to watch him. There was a great quote this past offseason. He went to go work with a cross-country coach that coaches elite cross-country athletes, and he was blown away with Travis Hunter's stamina, and kind of joked that you wishes he could cut him open and see how he's designed, because it just really is unbelievable. You hear the words generational talent used sometimes. I think if Travis Hunter stays healthy this season, he's going to do things as a two-way player that we just have never seen in college football. And so that is the concern going forward, obviously, because his first year at Jackson State, that was the issue. He was never healthy. And then obviously last year, the cheap shot there in the CSU game. So as long as he stays healthy, I think this is going to be one of those seasons that people talk about forever in terms of being among the best two-way players ever. And how do you even decide where he's going to get drafted now? He looks so good at receiver in the opener.
I think I saw a dumb mock draft from Field Yates that had him going 11th overall, and I immediately was like, no. Like, if he does what we know he can do, like, he's going to be a top pick in this draft. And I agree with you. Real quick, like, the way I'm still thinking about that catch, to be honest with you, but like the way that I personally knew that football was back in the Buffs and Travis Hunter is immediately after our watch party at number 38. I sprinted home, and the first and only thing I wanted to do was watch SportsCenter. I can't tell you the last time that I was like actively like, I need to watch SportsCenter. Like, I need to see what people are talking about with this guy. And it has just been phenomenal to see, kind of get his feet wet last year and hopefully blossoming into this otherworldly player this season. We know the talent's there, and I'm just stoked for Travis Hunter and the Buffs and that offense. It is so explosive. It's going to be a good season, hopefully. But let's fast forward. It is rivalry week. Tongue twister, excuse me there. As CU will take their talents out to Nebraska. Remember, last year, CU was able to take care of business at home against Nebraska at Folsom Field. That was an epic. I believe that was the 10 a.m. kickoff start as well. Folsom Field was buzzing. But Matt Rule in year two, that's a major theme that I've been hearing a lot about. They've got a lot of talent. Dylan Raiola as well, the quarterback, mini Mahomes, whatever you want to call him, hostile environment. And I'll come out and say it. I'm a little concerned about the Buffs overall this season because the talent's there, no doubt about it. But a lot of the same issues that I saw last year, to me, were present throughout the course of that game against North Dakota State. So my question to you, we think Nebraska is going to be much improved, but how do you kind of gauge this matchup with a real test on the road for CU?
Yeah, this is going to be a tough matchup, not just because of the environment. And I did a Q&A back and forth with our Nebraska guy, and he says he can't remember the last time, even as passionate as Nebraska fans are every week, he can't remember a time that this many people were this fired up for the game. So it's going to be a really fun environment. I think it's easy as a Colorado fan maybe to get a little cocky now, because last year, Jeff Sims was kind of a disaster at quarterback for Nebraska. Even before that, when Colorado went up against Adrian Martinez, he was a turnover machine. And now you get ready for a matchup against a true freshman quarterback that is going to be a really, really good player. Might be a Heisman candidate at some point down the road. That's how talented he is. And he looked good against UTEP, but it was against a really bad UTEP defense. I want to see what this looks like against Colorado's defense. I did think Colorado's defensive line improvement did show in that opener, so that's one area they were better. Yeah, they did have some issues defensively, but we saw that get corrected in the second half. We'll see if that carries over. It's a tough game to predict because I just don't know what to expect from Dylan Raiola in his first game against a power conference opponent. You know that Colorado is going to try to throw some wrinkles in there to try to test that quite a bit. But this kid seems to have a lot of moxie for somebody his age. It's pretty incredible. And I think going forward, Nebraska is going to be, a much more tougher out in the Big Ten. They were not that far out last year. They went 5-7. 5 of their losses were by 7 points or less. 4 of their losses were by just a field goal. So Nebraska fans are a little bit optimistic in the same way that Colorado fans were looking to a lot of the close losses last year and then pointing to improvements through the portal. And so Nebraska, they're tough in the trenches. Their O-line was pretty good last year. They just didn't get very good quarterback play. Defensive line at Nebraska has gotten better. So, yes, you are truly getting tested going out to Lincoln this weekend on both sides of the ball for Colorado.
Let's talk a little bit more about the trenches specifically, because I think there was a lot of different viewpoints, especially I was reading your message board right after the game. Where did you kind of fall? I know you mentioned there was a little bit of improvement, but did you kind of see what you had to see, or are you still kind of expecting to see more, both offensive line and defensive line?
Yeah, I think you need to see it continuing to go forward, because if you remember last year, the O-line actually looked adequate very, very early on. And then other teams started to really pick apart Colorado's weaknesses, especially on the interior of the offensive line. And then week after week, that group's confidence seemed to just get more and more shattered, and it became a really bad situation. The floor for this offensive line is clearly much higher than it was last year. And it did look quite a bit better on Thursday night than it did really, I want to say maybe the final 9-10 weeks of last season. So that had to be encouraging. And, frankly, I kind of expected Jordan Seaton to give up a sack, because it's his first ever game, and he wasn't perfect, but he played even better than I expected. And so there are some things to point to and be encouraged there. I think they're still kind of figuring out the right side of that offensive line a little bit. I'm really surprised Tyler Johnson, transferring in from Houston, hasn't had more of a play in that competition for a guard spot. So they might still be able to, but they can at least tinker with guys, Chase, this year. Last year, I mean, they just didn't have anybody else to in the too deep to go to. So that's another encouraging sign. But yeah, I think cautious optimism would be what I would call it with the O-line after 1 week.
I think that's fair. I thought they looked from the eye test, and then even looking at the stats, Shedeur was obviously rattled and under pressure a little bit, but it looked a little bit, the continuity looked a little bit better on the line, in my opinion. Real quick, before we get to some keys for the game, what about the defensive line? Because that was an area that I personally was a little, I don't know what the right word is, but I'm looking for some more from that defensive line. I'm looking for more pressures. I'm looking for more, rattling of the quarterback, and they're going to need that this weekend against Nebraska. What was your evaluation of Coach Prime's defensive line here week 1 against NDSU?
Yeah, you're going to see Colorado's pass rush be quite a bit improved from last year, but that was a tough matchup from that standpoint. They were getting the ball out really quick, and I don't think it was until that final drive that North Dakota State even attempted to pass more than 15 yards downfield. So it's tough to really rattle the quarterback when they're getting the ball out that quick. I think when they get into some more traditional matchups going forward, that group will get better. They played 24 defensive players, more than 6 snaps in that football game. So I think that is something, and if you can continue to have really deep rotations as the season goes along, it's really going to breed positive results. So I thought the depth showed. Chidozie Nwankwo had a really nice game, the Houston transfer on the defensive line. So there were some positives there. There were definitely some gaffes there, and especially that late touchdown run by Cam Miller. That's stuff that you can't have going forward as the schedule gets tougher.
All right, let's talk about some keys to beating Nebraska. I think it starts right there with the defensive line. I think you got to be able to stop the run, and you got to force Dylan Raiola to throw and see if he can handle all the pressure. But what are some of your keys against Nebraska on Saturday?
Yeah, he's a phenom, but he's 19 years old, and this is the first time he's going to go against a power conference defense, and so that is the key. And I don't expect Dylan Raiola to have the massive turnover issues that we saw with some previous Nebraska quarterbacks. But I still think that you can have him make some mistakes, whereas on the other side of the field, Shedeur Sanders rarely does. Sometimes he holds on to the ball too long, but in terms of his decision-making when he does throw the football, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Obviously, last week's interception with Shedeur was a big-time fluke. Yeah, I think if Dylan Raiola comes out and plays a fantastic football game, this is going to be a really tough environment to pull off the upset. But I think he will make some mistakes enough that we saw the offensive firepower with Colorado now. Does Nebraska focus on Jimmy Horn Jr. and Travis Hunter? And is this the week LeJontay Wester and Will Shepherd show up? It's going to be week to week. It's going to be fun to see which Colorado receivers emerge. And so I think Colorado is going to be able to, as long as they can just adequately protect Shedeur, put up enough points, and they really just need the defense to be adequate. So I think it is how that 19-year-old looks in Saturday's game that's going to really determine who wins this football game.
Well, we shall see. I know I'm excited. I know you're excited. Chase is excited. And for any of the Buff faithful out there that are looking to watch the game, we'll be at number 38 in Rhino for a watch party. So come on down, pre- and post-game shows with myself and Chase Howell, and a nice little gathering spot for any of the Buff faithful out here in the Denver metro area. But he is the great Adam Munsterteiger, publisher of BuffStampede.com. Be sure to check out his site, check out all of his work, and he'll have you covered with Buffs content all season long. And he might be appearing on this show throughout the course of the season as well. So, Adam, my friend, thank you so much for a few minutes of your time. It's going to be an exciting one. And next week, we got CSU. So we're right in the thick of it, my friend. Thank you.
Always enjoy it. Thanks, guys.